Hey YouTube, Savon Draws here. Today we'll be going over how to make a parallax effect in Procreate Dreams. A parallax effect, for those who don't know, is an effect that aims to create motion by making the background and foreground move at different speeds. Generally, the foreground will move faster than the background. We're going to make our parallax effect in two ways in this tutorial. First, we're going to go over how to do it in performance mode, and then we're also going to go over how to do it with regular keyframing. The first thing we'll want to do to create our parallax effect is separate all of our art layers and tracks into the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. As you can see here, I have everything labeled. Here's my foreground, my character is labeled as my middle ground, and my background. As of right now, this is how the animation appears. So first, to get into the way of doing this with performance mode, we're going to turn on the performance mode. And when it says record, we're going to record a movement. We're just going to move all our objects in the foreground to the right. As we can see, the object is now moved to the right when we play back. Now, we can move all our objects in the background as well. We're going to want to make sure that our objects in the background don't go quite as far to the right, so they move slower when we finally do playback our animation. As we can see, when we enter playback, they're moving at quite a similar speed, so we'll have to adjust how far we move the objects. This is a little bit better, but we can work on it even more. We can add motion filtering to adjust how much Procreate Dreams will affect our movement as we perform in perform mode. I found that when editing the modify options for motion filtering, when I had it higher, the objects would move to the right in a more stable manner. Now, one thing we can fix is the fact that the objects are moving up and down as they're also moving to the right. We can do this by expanding the move and scale keyframes, and then deleting our Y keyframes, which have the objects move up and down. Our goal will be to only have X keyframes, which will move the objects from left to right. And voila! Now everything moves from left to right without any interruptions. Of course, you can keep your Y keyframes if the parallax effect you are trying to create utilizes movement that will need your objects to move in a diagonal fashion. Please make sure all of your easing keyframes are set to linear. Now we can delete these keyframes by hitting delete, move and scale, and we can create our parallax effect by going to the playhead and clicking on the move tab. Then we can create X keyframes so we can only move horizontally. Make sure to click specifically on the X keyframe, as it won't automatically create an X keyframe when you move your object. You can also just stay in the move and scale option and click and move your object with your pencil while holding the screen to enable snapping. Then the objects will be easier to move left and right, as well as up and down. You can also directly touch your keyframes to input the math of how you would do it. Here I am just putting in an uneducated guess. And like that, we have our second parallax effect. Now we can fix this up so it will look even better. You can add to this effect even more by adding more objects that move at different speeds. From my layers, I made another layer that in the back that moves even slower than my background layers. Now I have 4 objects moving at different speeds within the animation. Here's the final that you can take a peek at. I've included this project file on my Gumroad for you guys to download. You can get a free do-it-yourself version on my Gumroad, and a $2 version with the full parallax and lighting compositing effects. Thank you for viewing this tutorial, and if you learned something, please hit a like and subscribe. Also, let me know what else you would like covered in Procreate Dreams or any other animation app. Drop a comment below.